Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's life? Like you're following a script written by voices that were never yours? You wake up each day performing a role you never auditioned for, pursuing goals that feel hollow, seeking approval from people whose opinions shouldn't matter. What if I told you that over a century ago, a German philosopher saw exactly what would happen to you? That Friedrich Nietzsche predicted the precise psychological traps that would capture your generation, the lies you'd believe, and the price you'd pay for believing them? By the end of this video, you'll understand why your life feels like it belongs to someone else, why your achievements feel empty, and why the very things you were taught would bring happiness have left you more isolated than ever. This isn't philosophy for the sake of philosophy. This is a mirror held up to the modern soul, and what it reveals might disturb you more than you're prepared for. When did you last have a truly original thought, not borrowed from social media or family, but entirely your own? In The Dawn, Nietzsche wrote, "The surest way to corrupt a youth is to instruct him to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think differently." He saw that education systems weren't designed to create thinkers. They were designed to create workers, compliant, predictable, manageable workers who would never question the fundamental assumptions of their society. You were conditioned from birth to mistake conformity for intelligence, obedience for virtue, and groupthink for wisdom. The tragedy isn't just that you were taught to obey, it's that you were taught to enjoy your obedience. He saw clearly that the most effective form of control isn't physical chains. It's psychological conditioning that makes people grateful for their limitations. When you believe that following the crowd is the path to success, you voluntarily surrender your capacity for independent thought. Most people don't realize they've lost this capacity until they're decades into a life they never consciously chose. They wake up feeling like strangers to themselves. The answer is simple. They never developed a self to be strange to. Has this been true in your own life? Comment below. When faced with a truth that would disrupt your comfortable worldview, do you embrace it or avoid it? In Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche observed, "Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed." We live in an era where you can find evidence for any belief you want to hold. You can surround yourself with voices that confirm your biases, algorithms that feed you comforting content, and communities that never challenge your assumptions. And most people do exactly that. They create echo chambers not because they love truth, but because they fear it. They seek confirmation, not information. They want to be right more than they want to be accurate. But comfort is the enemy of growth. When you prioritize feeling good over being accurate, you stop evolving. You become psychologically stagnant. Think about the last time someone challenged a deeply held belief of yours. Did you engage openly, or did your defenses rise before you even processed the information? This is what Nietzsche meant when he talked about the will to ignorance, the psychological drive to remain unconscious rather than face difficult realities. Truth doesn't care about your comfort. Reality doesn't adjust itself to your preferences, and the longer you avoid difficult truths, the more violently they eventually crash into your life. When you feel emotional pain, what's your first instinct? If you're like most people, it's to make the pain stop as quickly as possible. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche wrote, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." We live in a culture that treats pain like a technical problem to be solved rather than a teacher to be understood. We medicate every discomfort, distract from every difficult moment, and bypass every challenging feeling. What we lack is the wisdom to recognize that pain often contains the exact information we need to grow. Think about your most transformative periods. Were they when everything was smooth, or when you faced loss, failure, or betrayal? Suffering isn't a bug in the human experience. It's a feature. It's how consciousness evolves, character develops, and strength is forged. When you avoid all pain, you don't just avoid suffering, you avoid becoming. Nietzsche proved this through his own life. Chronic illness, isolation, rejection. Yet he transformed these experiences into profound insights. His pain became his power. There's something intoxicating about being part of a group. You feel safe, validated, powerful. But here's what's disturbing. In Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche wrote, "In individuals, insanity is rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule." Groups don't amplify intelligence, they diminish it. When people come together, they don't think more clearly, they think less. Social media has weaponized this dynamic. Every platform creates artificial tribes where your beliefs are constantly reinforced and opposing viewpoints are filtered out. You're not engaging with diverse perspectives. You're participating in mass confirmation bias. The more time you spend in these digital crowds, the less capable you become of thinking independently. Your mind becomes colonized by the collective. He predicted this with terrifying accuracy. As societies became more connected, people would become more conformist. As information became more accessible, individuals would become less thoughtful. The person who wants to think clearly must be willing to think alone. Yet this solitary path is also where clarity and originality are born. You were taught that kindness is always a virtue, that being nice and accommodating will make you a good person. In Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche wrote, "The weak are always forced to lie." Why? Because when you lack the strength to enforce your boundaries, you can't afford to be honest about your needs or limits. Think of the friend who always says yes. Are they happy or drained? Kindness without strength isn't virtue. It's invitation for exploitation. When you can't say no, your yes becomes meaningless. This doesn't mean becoming cruel. It means developing what Nietzsche called noble qualities, the combination of strength and compassion, power and wisdom. The person who is kind and strong changes lives. They can afford to be generous because they're not afraid of being depleted. But the person who is only kind becomes a magnet for takers and emotional vampires. They give until they have nothing left, then wonder why they feel bitter. Predators don't respect kindness, they exploit it. Develop your strength before you develop your kindness. Most people think discipline is about willpower, motivation, or grinding through tasks you don't want to do. They see it as punishment, deprivation, or forcing yourself to act against your natural inclinations. Nietzsche understood something much deeper. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he wrote, "He who cannot command himself will always be a servant." Discipline isn't about controlling your behavior. It's about respecting yourself enough to align your actions with your values, even when it's difficult. It's the external expression of internal self-worth. When you consistently do what you say you'll do, you're telling yourself that your word matters. When you maintain your standards regardless of how you feel, you're demonstrating that your principles are more important than your moods. But when you constantly break promises to yourself, when you let your emotions dictate your actions, when you choose comfort over commitment, you're telling yourself that you don't matter, that your goals aren't important, that your values are negotiable. This creates a vicious cycle. The less disciplined you are, the less you respect yourself. The less you respect yourself, the less motivated you are to be disciplined. Eventually, you become a prisoner of your own impulses, controlled by whatever feels good in the moment. Discipline is how you build trust with yourself. It's how you prove to your unconscious mind that you're worthy of the goals you claim to want. When you consistently follow through on your commitments to yourself, something powerful happens. You develop unshakable confidence in your ability to create the life you want. If these truths resonate, hit subscribe now. We're going deeper. The people closest to you might not want you to change. Unconsciously, they've built their identity around the version of you that stays the same. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche wrote, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." When you start growing and transforming, you create a problem. Your growth highlights their stagnation. Your courage exposes their fears. When you set boundaries with family who walked all over you, when you pursue ambitious goals your friends think are unrealistic, when you stop participating in negative conversations, do they celebrate, or do they try to pull you back down? Some of the strongest resistance to your growth comes from people who claim to love you most. They don't want you to fail, but they also don't want you to succeed beyond their comfort zone. This creates a painful dilemma. You often must choose between growing and belonging, between becoming who you're meant to be and maintaining relationships with people who need you to stay who you've always been. Most people choose belonging over becoming. They shrink themselves to fit into relationships that no longer serve them. The alternative requires courage. You must be willing to outgrow relationships that can't accommodate your growth. You must be prepared to be misunderstood by people who refuse to evolve. When was the last time you made a decision based solely on what you wanted, without considering what others would think? Nietzsche saw approval seeking as the death of individual authenticity. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he commanded, "Become who you are." But how can you become who you are if you're constantly trying to become who others want you to be? The approval-seeking mindset is a prison disguised as social intelligence. You think you're being considerate, diplomatic, or strategic. In reality, you're abandoning your authentic self for a performance that pleases others. Every time you modify your opinion to avoid conflict, you lose a piece of your integrity. Every time you suppress your true desires to meet others' expectations, you disconnect from your authentic nature. Here's the cruelest irony. The people whose approval you're seeking don't actually know the real you because you've never shown them who you really are. They're approving of your mask, not your face. Your performance, not your person. The more approval you receive for being inauthentic, the more you lose touch with your authenticity. The more praise you get for your persona, the more you forget your true self. Eventually, you become so skilled at being what others want that you no longer know what you want. You become so good at performing emotions that you lose access to your real feelings. Social media has weaponized this dynamic. Every post becomes a performance designed to generate validation. You're not sharing your authentic experience. You're managing your personal brand. Authentic individuality requires the courage to disappoint others, to say what you really think, even if it's unpopular, to be who you truly are, even if it costs you approval. Most people live as if they were immortal, postponing dreams and wasting days as if time were infinite. In The Gay Science, Nietzsche presented eternal recurrence. He asked, what if a demon were to say to you, This life as you now live it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more. Would you throw yourself down and gnash your teeth, or answer, "You are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine"? Imagine waking tomorrow to relive today exactly as it was. Does that fill you with joy or dread? If repeating your current life forever fills you with horror, that's information. You're not living in alignment with your deepest values. You're wasting time on things that don't matter while neglecting what does. Death isn't the enemy of life. It's the force that gives life meaning. When you understand your time is limited, every moment becomes precious. But most people live in denial of mortality. They fill days with distractions, minds with trivialities, lives with activities that feel urgent but aren't important. Eternal recurrence forces a brutal question. If you had to live your exact life again forever, would you want to? Would you be proud of how you spent your time? Most would say no. That realization should terrify them enough to change everything. Pause and reflect. What would you change if you truly grasped that your time is finite? Here's Nietzsche's most liberating and terrifying truth. To become truly free, you must be willing to lose everything that isn't real. In The Gay Science, he wrote, "The secret of reaping the greatest fruitfulness and the greatest enjoyment from life is to live dangerously." Living dangerously doesn't mean taking physical risks or being reckless. It means being willing to question everything you've been taught, challenge every assumption you've inherited, and abandon every identity that doesn't serve your authentic growth. It means being willing to disappoint your parents by refusing to live their unlived dreams, to alienate friends by outgrowing shared limitations, to abandon careers that provide security but not satisfaction, to leave relationships that offer comfort but not connection. Freedom is not given, it's taken. And the price is everything that's comfortable, familiar, and false. Most people want freedom in theory, but not in practice. They want to feel liberated without giving up their psychological security blankets. They want to grow without changing. They want to become authentic without abandoning their protective personas. But you can't have both. You can't be free and safe, authentic and comfortable. The process of becoming who you really are requires destroying who you've pretended to be. It means facing hidden parts of yourself, expressing suppressed truths, and pursuing denied dreams. Most people never become truly free because the price is too high. They prefer the prison of false certainty to the freedom of authentic unknowing. This choice is the defining moment of every human life. Will you accept comfortable lies that keep you small, or embrace dangerous truths that set you free? What illusion are you ready to abandon? You've just encountered 10 of the most brutal and liberating truths about human existence. Nietzsche didn't share these insights to make you comfortable. He shared them to wake you up. Every one of these truths is a choice point. You can acknowledge them and begin the difficult work of transformation, or you can dismiss them and continue living the life you've always lived. But understand this, ignorance is no longer an option. Now that you've seen these patterns, you can't unsee them. Are you going to continue seeking approval from people whose opinions don't matter? Are you going to keep avoiding pain and staying comfortable? Are you going to remain a slave to your impulses and emotions? The choice is yours, but choose quickly, because time is the one resource you can't recover, and every day you wait is another day you'll never get back. Nietzsche's message is clear. You can live dangerously and become who you're meant to become, or you can live safely and remain who you've always been, but you can't do both. If this video disturbed something in you, if it woke up a part of yourself you've been ignoring, Then tell us which truth hit you hardest in the comments below. And if you want more content that challenges you to think deeper, feel stronger, and live more authentically, subscribe to this channel. We're building a community of people who refuse to settle for comfortable lies and demand uncomfortable truths. The world doesn't need more people who are well-adjusted to a sick society. It needs more people who are courageously maladjusted to systems that destroy the human spirit. Welcome to that revolution. It starts with you.